Okay, let's get started here. Thank you. Okay, so we're in the middle of Tachanun, of course. So we spoke last week. I said, why do we say Behu Rachum so often? Behu Rachum Yichver Avon V'lo Yashchit. So we discussed why we say it at Mariv. We sort of the beginning of the day. It's the end of the day and the beginning of the day at the same time, which I think is very appropriate. In other words, it's the end of our functional day. We live functionally from the morning to the evening, and sort of as we get ready to go to bed. That's when Marv used to be, not at 5 o'clock now, and then you're up for 7 more hours. But Marv, it's be the end of the day. So what did I do today? No, I asked God to forgive me for sins of the day, and also sort of the beginning of the day, the first thing I asked. But we also said that we said before Ashrei, we say it 3 times in Shachrit. So I saw just last night the Rokeach. The Rokeach is Rav Eliezer of Worms. Worms, of course, one of the great cities in Jewish history in Germany. One of the Kilot Shum, as we call them in Hebrew, Spires, Magens, Mainz, and Worms. And we visited Worms and Mainz on our Jewish history trip to Germany, which we last did 9 years ago. And these were, Rashi spent time in Worms. And so this was really one of the great centers of Jewish life. And the Rokeach was one of the he died, I believe they say he died in 1328, around there, beginning of the 14th century. He was, no, I'm sorry, beginning of the 13th century, in the 1200s. And he was a student of Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid. He was mystically inclined. I sometimes go through his commentary. It's in the Torah Chaim Siddur. I don't understand half the stuff, but he's talking about it, whatever. But he mentions, I just find it interesting. He says we say Behu Rachum 3 times in Shachri because we daven 3 times a day. So for each time a day, we say Behu Rachum, Shachri Min Chamar. Now, right away when I saw that, I said, but hold on, we say it in Mariv too. So probably he didn't say it at Mariv. My guess, I don't know for a fact, we say it 3 times a day because we daven 3 times a day. And in other words, the idea is that prayer is mercy. The idea of prayer is to ask God to have mercy on us. God should, the merciful one, should atone for our sins, forgive our sins, Yom Yichaper, Kippurim, below Yashchit, and not destroyed. And he should have he should return his. Rabbi Leiptag was talking yesterday. Apo, af is sort of the anger of God. That's Charon af. So we do lots of things wrong. So we pray to God 3 times a day to have mercy and don't kindle your anger against us. But Ashrei, why do we say Ashrei twice at Shachrit? Because we don't say it. We want to say Ashrei 3 times a day. The Gemara says you should say. The Gemara has wonderful things to say about saying Ashrei 3 times a day. Of course, it doesn't mean that. Whenever the Gemara says if you say something, this will happen. It doesn't mean if you say it. It means if you act it. So potech et yedecha. If we give food to the poor like God does, if we do Ashrei 3 times a day, then we get all these tremendous merits. It's the same thing the Gemara says, if we say the 13 attributes of mercy, then God will forgive us. It doesn't mean we say the 13 attributes of mercy, which of course we do that a lot. On Yom Kippur means if we do them, if we act Rachum, Bechanun, Erech Apayim, Rav Chesed, Emet, if we do all those things, kind and merciful and slow to anger and truthful, that's when God's not saying it. And actually the Gemara there says, I think the word is even oseh, whatever, you have to do the 13 attributes. So we say Ashrei 3 times a day, but we don't say Ashrei at Mariv. So we say twice at Shachrit, once at Mincha. So if you're going to say Behu Rachum 3 times a day, they probably didn't say it at Mariv because then they don't have to say it twice a day. I don't know, whatever. I just found that interesting. That's why he said we say Behu Rachum so often, because it's the idea that prayer is. He doesn't say this part, that prayer is mercy, but that's, I think, obvious. The goal of prayer is to ask God to have mercy on it, and we daven. Our practice, as we'll see in a few minutes, is to daven 3 times a day. That's that's what the source for that is not so clear. And we daven three times a day, and therefore we say it. He also pointed out, and this is where he gets into 50 different explanations. I should know this, but maybe I did at one point, but I totally forgot. How many words in Behu Rachum? Without counting, how many words? So he says there are 13 words. Now you can count them. I can't. Behu, Rachum, Yichver, Abon, Below, Yashkit, Berbal, Yashiv, Apo, Below, Yair, Kol, Chamato. 13, right? So he said that's the 13 mitot harachamim. With this whole idea of rachamim, of mercy. So I don't know. This is in the medieval world, the Hasidei Ashkenaz, which he was sort of a part of a group with. They were very into this kind of stuff, that lettering and how many words, and even gematrias was a big part of what they did, and it's a world I'm sort of not so familiar with. But they made a big deal out of how many words would be. So he points out V'hurachum is 13 words, and that's connected to 13 mitzvot of mercy. I didn't realize this. This I probably never knew. Maybe the V'hurachum had 13 words. Maybe I knew at one point in my life. I don't know. But what he also noted is that Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov is 13 letters, right? Yaakov and Yitzchak are 4 letters. Yitzchak, Yaakov, 4 letters, and Abraham is 5 letters. 4, and 5 is 13. Okay, very nice. Okay, I don't know, whatever, but that's and he has a whole list. The Rokeach in his comment, there's a whole list of 13, the number 13. By the way, just as a side, we are into numerology. I mean, Judaism does take numbers seriously. It's parparot lechokhmah. It's not the essence of learning, but it's has some value. I always say, what is the number 13 represent? So we've already seen the 13 mitot harachamim represents God's mercy. What else? And of course, they're all connected. What else is 13? Bar mitzvah. Okay, it's probably a connection there too.
Echad.
I'm sorry?
Echad.
Oh, the gematria of echad.
Bar mitzvah.
All right, very good. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, right. Gematria, by the way, which is the same gematria as ahava, love. That I remember my father giving a speech about that a long time ago. Ahava and echad, right, which of course makes a lot of sense. This is a beautiful use of gematria. Ahava and echad are 13. What else is 13?
Bar mitzvah.
I'm sorry, I said bar mitzvah, right? What else?
Oh, what else?
So 13 is the attributes of God. That's, as far as I know, that's the only 13 in the Torah. Correct me if I'm wrong. That in the Torah itself, like we have a lot of 40s in the Torah, we have a lot of 7s in the Torah, and they are of course important numbers. As far as I know,
13 Shvatim.
but we don't consider it 13. We always consider it
12, but there are 13.
Who makes the 12?
13
Sometimes,
sons.
you're right. No, it's 12.
No, because it's 2 from
Right.
Yosef. Right?
Sometimes Levi's count, sometimes, right. We don't have I don't know what they did in the Chagall windows. He doesn't have a Levi, right? He's Ephraim and Manasseh, not Levi. Right, but we consider 12 Shvatim. We don't consider it could be 13, right? Why not? But it's not. It's not 13, right? So as far as I know, 13. But in later literature, and I think it's connected to the fact that 13, it's not just it's the 13 attributes of mercy, it's a definition of God. In other words, when did God tell Moshe 13 attributes of mercy? Moshe asked God, tell me who you are. Let me know who you are. And God says, I can't let you know who I am. That's impossible, a human being. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So the 13 attributes is sort of the definition of who God is, and the essence of God is found in these 13 attributes. That's what we say. Okay, now, so what becomes? So Rabbi Yishmael, we say every morning, Bishlosh Zrei Mitot Hatarani Dreshapem. Now that's Rabbi Yishmael made it up. There. By the way, there are other views. There are other listing of categories how we use the Torah. And I don't think when's the last time you did a davar halamein or like we don't really learn like this. Like I don't know anybody who sits there. Oh, this is klal yotzei klal like lakzir klal. We don't talk like that. But he made up 13 categories of how we understand Torah. Well, that's what God is. God's defined himself through the Torah, towards the autobiography of God. And then, of course, the Rambam made 13 principles of faith. Again, it's not a coincidence. They play with these things to do it. And by the way, we discussed before, 613 mitzvot is also playing with the number. It's not that it's not an objective count. It's not that they sat down, it's 613. No, the rabbis wanted 613 mitzvot, so they had to go in a pretzel because to figure out how we have 613 mitzvot, and nobody can figure it out. We've never figured it out. That's why we don't have a list of 6. We have lists, but none of lists agree with each other of 613 mitzvot. And I think, So Friedberg, those who live in Toronto know, is Friedberg Mercantile Exchange. They're big in the business world, big in the financial world, but he's also a big Talmid Chacham, did a PhD at University of Toronto, and he wrote a book on the 613 mitzvot of the Rambam. And he basically says the Rambam had to go into a pretzel to figure out how do we get to 613 mitzvot. The rabbis wanted, I mean, the one view, because 365 days of the year and 248 bones in the body. So that was important to the rabbis, a mitzvah a day, and every bone of our body has a mitzvah. Oh, so that's up to 613. So now we have to work backwards and we have to work the mitzvot into this. It's not, that's why, like, I don't get excited, the 613, which is not really true. I mean, I know that sounds heretical, but that's okay. Not like there are 5 million mitzvot anyway. So there are 5 mitzvot on Shabbat, all 39 melachot are one mitzvah. Like, why? Like, so we manipulated, maybe that's, people don't like that word, but you understand what I'm trying to say. The number drove the idea, not the other way around. So to me, it's clear that Rabbi Shmuel, and for sure the Rambam, when the Rambam has 13 principles of faith, I have no doubt that the Rambam is doing 13 principles of faith because of the 13 attributes of God, and this is defining, what do we have to believe in, what we believe in God. Anyways, so that's why. So it's a big deal. In the medieval period, some people made big deals about numbers and what numbers in gematria, and I don't know, but remember, as the Mishnah says, it's parparot l'chochma. It's sort of the secondary aspect of wisdom. More important to learn what it says. So with that, let's get back into Tachanun. I forgot my Siddur with me, but let's share our screen a little bit, and we can continue. Okay, so we were. Let me just share my screen, and we'll get to Tachanun a little bit. Where are we here? Okay, everybody can see. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we got towards the end of the first paragraph. That's what we were just talking about. We ended right? We ended last week by saying, 20 and 100, right? This is from Mizmor 20 that God should answer us. We say we say it every day between Ashrei Uvalasion. Although you notice we went from the singular to the plural. If you look in Tehillim 20, it's Yancha Hashem b'Yom Tzor Yishekevcha, and here it's Anenu. I don't know why. I just noticed that this morning. Remember I told you last week, because there are Hashatz. That's when I do, last minute preparation. So I was reading this and then hold on. And it actually says in my Siddur, Tehillim Kaf, like this verse, what I have highlighted comes from Tehillim Kaf. It does, but there's a slight change in the wording. If you go to between Ashrei Uvaletzion, which I'm not going to do now, it says Yancha, not Yanenu. But okay, we'll leave that. Okay, Hashem Moshe Melech Yanenu B'Yom Karenu. Okay. God should save us. When we call out to Him. Okay, and then we say Avinu Malkeinu, or sort of Avinu Malkeinu Chaneinu Vanenu Avinu Malkeinu Chaneinu Kim Banu Masim Asei Manu Tzedakah B'Chesed V'Hoshienu. Oh, we don't do that. We say Kim Banu Masim Asei Manu. Notice we change it. Leman Shemecha. So on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, when we say Avinu Malkeinu, Seimanu Tzedakah V'Chesed, right? Seimanu Tzedakah V'Chesed V'Hoshienu. The purpose of God having mercy on us is to save us. That makes sense of Rosh Hashanah because our lives are hanging in the balance. But in Tachanun, it's a little bit different. I mentioned last week, I counted in the first couple of paragraphs 10 times at least, that we say, God help us, not for us, for you. Because when the Jewish people suffer, it's a reflection on God. It's a negative reflection on God. And people make fun of God, and they have the Jewish people we do. And that's what the Christianity preached for 2,000 years, that the way we're treated is proof that God has abandoned us. And that's a very strong argument. I mean, it's not like the Christians weren't crazy for making such an argument. And Rav Soloveitchik, that's one of his major points in Kol Dotito Fake. And Rav Soloveitchik talked about the 6 knocks with the creation of the state of Israel. And has everybody here read Kol Dotito Fake? Anybody? I know this is very unfair to do, but if you haven't read it, read it. Kol Dotito Fake, that was Rabbi Soloveitchik's religious Zionism manifesto. It delivered in 1956, I believe, in Lamport Auditorium on Yom Ha'atzmaut. and where this pasuk in Shir Shirim called Udi Dofek, my beloved knocks, and we didn't answer the knock. That's the tragedy. So Rav Soloveitchik said God knocked 6 knocks with the creation of the state of Israel. So one of these knocks was about Christianity, this claim that God has abandoned us is no longer true. Yeah, maybe he did abandon us, quote unquote. Hester Panim, he abandoned us for a while, but now he's back. And Russell basically said before this creation of the state, he would travel from Boston to New York to go teach, and people would make fun of him, Christian missionaries. Very popular. Then that all stopped with the creation of the state of Israel. So, anyways, but that's a very, very common theme, doing it for God's sake. So here, in Tachanun, God, it's like an argument. When the kids goes to their parents, it's not for me, it's for you. It'll be if you let me do this, it'll be better for you. It's like almost a funny argument. Like it sounds almost untrue. Like, oh, that you right? We're really asking God to have mercy on us for your sake, or that's just what we say, but we don't really mean it. So I don't know. I bet, but it is. In other words, theologically, it's true. It's for God's sake. I don't know when people say that. That's what they have in mind. I think they maybe have in mind the Oshienu that we do on Rosh Hashanah. But anyways, we ask God, who of course we know many, many times God is our Father and our King, and these of course are opposites in a way, or they're I don't know opposites. They're in tension with each other, just like the mitzvah to love God and the mitzvah to fear God are in tension with each other. Life is all about tension. That's what life. Otherwise, what's the purpose of life? So you have to resolve. You have to work with the tensions. I know that doesn't go over well in the Kiruv movement to tell people that life is full of tension and religion creates tension. But okay, what can we do? But we have this dual relationship with each other. Okay. Continue. Adonenu, Eloheinu, Shema Kol Tachtonenu, Schar Lanu Brit Avotenu. Again, I mentioned last week, 2 weeks ago, the themes come over and over again. Because remember, this is pouring out of the heart. This is what Tachanun is. It's like you finish davening, but before we finish, we can just pour out our heart. Whatever we want to say, that's really the idea of it. It's maybe hard for us to do. I've often said that maybe it's not as true as it once was, unfortunately. But for a lot of time, davening is a hard mitzvah because life is good. When life is good, it's hard to daven. When somebody gets very sick and when there's a war, it's a lot easier to daven. When there's COVID going around and people are dying left and right everywhere, so it's pretty easy to daven. When Baruch Hashem things are going well, it's much harder to daven. So Baruch Hashem, often it's hard to daven. It's maybe not as true these days as it was a few years ago, but it's still, I still say with all the problems, and I don't know how everybody in New York is doing with your nice new mayor, but it's still the best time to be a Jew pretty much in Jewish history since the year 70. It's still way better than it was, and I think, I don't know, that's me. I think it's important to keep that in perspective. Maybe I'm an optimist. I don't know, maybe I'm stupid, maybe what, but I still think this is really it's still a very, very positive time for Jews around the world, despite a lot of the unfortunate things that have happened. Okay, you can agree or disagree, but anyway, but it is hard for us to pour out our hearts that way. But here's what we're doing: Shema Kol Brit Avotenu, Hoshienu again, Leman Shemecha. We just said it. We just said it in the previous verse. Do it, God, for your sake. Avata Hashem Elokeinu, Asher Tzeitic Me'eretz Yisrael. Okay. Now, just give me a second. Okay. So this next section, which is interesting, they go here. Okay. The next 5 verses, and I'm going to switch it in a second, come from the book of Daniel. It doesn't say that. I don't know. Safari doesn't put in the source, but it may say it in your Siddur, it may not. So let's go. I'm going to just switch to Daniel instead of going from Tachanun. And we're going to see, but where is it here?
Daniel Tet.
Yeah, I know. I know. Here it is. Yeah, right. This is where we are, right? The same thing, right? Yeah, but yeah, so here it is. It comes from Daniel Tet. Okay, so let's just do a little background, very short. I'm no expert in Daniel, But I mentioned earlier that three times a day. So Daniel is our source. I don't know if people realize this. The source that we daven three times a day is from Daniel. Now, it's the Talmud, of course, has a debate. What's the source of davening, or what's the Tefillah keneged. It's hard to translate that word keneged. Tefillah keneged avot or keneged korbanot. It's in lieu of, or it's in response to keneged, like ezer kenegdo is not easy to translate, right? So normally translate, God made an ezer kenegdo, that our wife, Adam's wife, is a helpmate. But as the Netziv beautifully points out, the word neged means opposite. It's what the word a contronym or something, where it means the same thing and it's opposite, right? Um, oversight, or no, like something to sanction, right? To sanction somebody, it means to approve or to punish. Sanction. I approve of you're doing it, or I no, it's terrible what you did. So ezer kenegdo. The Netziv neged means to be opposed to, and he says the role of a spouse is to be a constructive critic, just like the role here in Canada we call it the official opposition. The role of the official opposition, that's what we call the second party in Parliament here, is to oppose the government. Sometimes they do it too much. Sometimes it's to give a second voice, right? When everybody lives in an echo chamber, which is what politics has become in too many places. So you have really bad politics. I mean, you want to hear other opinions, you want to hear criticism. So that's the yeah, hold on one second. The goal of your spouse is to be opposed to you. So ezer connected, but it also means to be with you. Keneged is along with you. So it means both. So the Gemara says tefillah keneged. Okay, here I don't think it means that we daven either because the avot davened, or because of the korbanot. And then the korbanot, there are only two, so how do you get to Marib? But we'll see in 1 second. I want to get to, but and that's how the Gemara says why we know our tefillah. But the idea that davening three times a day is very interesting, all three. In other words, we know that Avram, the Talmud says, Avram daven shachrit. And again, by the way, we start in the morning. Again, remember, we don't start at night. We functionally begin the day in the daytime. Halachically, the day begins at night, but that's not functionally. And I think I mentioned it again last week or 2 weeks ago, right? The Siddur always begins at Shachrit, the temple. The day began in the morning, because that's where God dwells. There's already light. The day begins at night only outside of the temple. In temple grounds, the day officially, halachically, began in the morning. So when you brought a sacrifice on Monday, you could eat it till Tuesday morning, till the next day, till dawn. Okay, the rabbis say to eat it by midnight. You don't want to by mistakenly eat it late, like we know by the Apikomen. But Pesach night, Pesach begins on the 14th, but it goes through the night of the 15th. That's why I said the Seder night, Chag HaMatzot and Chag HaPesach coincide. Chag HaPesach is on the 14th of Nisan. Chag HaMatzot is on the 15th of Nisan. But Chag HaPesach is in the temple. It's a temple holiday. It's all about bringing a sacrifice. So the 14th of Nisan extends from the morning of the 14th till the morning of the 15th. So it includes what we call the night of the 15th. It's actually beautiful. I hope I was clear about that. Right? The night of the Seder is the 15th, what we call the 15th of Nisan. But in the temple, it's still the 14th of Nisan, because the day doesn't start till the next day. So Chag HaPesach and Chag HaMatzot come together at the Seder. Anyway, so functionally, we always start the day in the morning. So Avram, the first daven, he davened Shachrit, he doesn't Marib, but it's about hope. The morning's about hope. Yitzchak davens mincha, the middle of the day, is about to get married, whatever. So Rivka's coming. And Yaakov davens Marib, because Yaakov is fear. He's running away from Esav. Night is always fear. By the way, I can't help. I know it's still nothing to do with anything. I haven't forgotten about you, Marty. But we saw this week. I don't know if it's shown yet in New York. They had it's Holocaust Education Week here in Toronto. They have every year, and they had a documentary on Elie Wiesel. We went to see on Tuesday night. It was phenomenal. It was like some producer in New York. They actually interviewed him after the film. He was online and people were asking questions. It was really, really, really powerful with Elie Wiesel. So it's unbelievably well done. And I don't know, people were asking how do you get it to more places. That's one of these little films, but it's really, really excellent. If it's called Souls of Fire. Anyways, I don't know why am I talking about that? I forget. But and there was something that clicked my mind to mention about Elie Wiesel. I just wanted to throw that in. I'm sorry. But back here, so Avram Davin, because hope, night, fear.
Night, fear.
Night, yeah, obviously. That was a book we wrote in France, yeah. So that's Yaakov Avinu. But it's very interesting. I listen, I don't know what it means, they daven Shachrit. They didn't say Shmon Esrei. Avram Avinu didn't say, if you listen to my podcast this week, I speak about what does it mean that the Avot kept the Torah. It doesn't mean like they kept the Torah like we keep the Torah. It's a different So I don't think Avram Avinu said Slach Lon Avinu, Hashivenu, and Al Tzadikim. He didn't say V'lirushalayim Ircha Barachamim Tashu. That I can guarantee you that he didn't say that. So I don't exactly. I mean, whatever he prayed, the way prayer is supposed to be, from the heart, what you want. We have some of the prayers are mentioned in the Torah. Moshe's prayer for Miriam, save her, heal her, beautiful. So Avram Daven Shachrit, Yaakov, Yitzchak Mincha, Yaakov Mar. But it doesn't say that Yitzchak daven Shachrit and Mincha, and Yaakov daven Shachrit Mincha and Marv. In other words, that you would assume Avram daven Shachrit, and Yitzchak added Mincha, right? We have that by the Sheva Mitzvah, but Noach, the Gemara says that. Like they had 6 by Adam, and Noach added a 7th, and then you have even Yosef or Yehuda sort of had Yibum, we added mitzvah. It doesn't say Avram Davin Shachrit and Yaakov, Yitzchak added Mincha and Yaakov added Marv. It sounds like almost that Avram, in other words, we associate Avram as only Shachrit, Yitzchak is only Mincha, and Yaakov is only Marv. And if you look at it in the Chumash, I think that's the typology. Yaakov is Galut. We went to Egypt. It's only Marv. It's not Shachrit. Because these are not halachic discussions. That's when Gemara says, Keneged, like our Abba daven. So like we to be like alongside them, we also daven. It's not like they, halachically did that idea. After I finish this, Marty, I'll let you ask your question. So
Okay.
the Gemara then says, so I will show you. So our first source, to the best of my knowledge, the first source that somebody davened 3 times a day is in the book of Daniel. And that is, I think I have it up here, in chapter 6. We'll get to chapter 9. Though, by the way, Daniel is mainly in Aramaic. Chapter 9 is in Hebrew, but Daniel is mainly in Aramaic. And it's actually, there's another amazing thing. I just, in the temple on Yom Kippur night, so the Kohen Gadol was not allowed to sleep, because we were afraid if he sleeps, he may have a seminal emission, in which case he would be invalid from doing the avodah. So they kept him up all night. They even gave him a slightly different diet, etc. So so what did he do all night, the Kohen Gadol? So the Mishnah said, what's he going to do all night? He's going to learn Torah. Well, what was he going to do? So they said, if he's learned, remember, many of the Kohanim were totally not learned. It was a corrupted temple had become corrupted, religion had become corrupted. That's not the first time in history that happened, unfortunately. Religion is the most powerful force in the world. So you can misuse it or use it, right? Newton's law of motion is true in the spiritual world too. The greater the potential for good, the greater the potential for evil. So that's why religion can be a force for so much evil and hatred and killing, which it has been. Millions of people have died in the name of God. This is terrible. Religion can be misused, right? Only because it's powerful, or because it's powerful, it can be used either way, either which way we want. So anyways, there was corruption, as we all know, in the Second Temple period. So if the Kohen Gadol was a proper one, they weren't all corrupt, some were proper. So he would learn Torah if he knew how to learn. And if he didn't know how to learn completely,
They would read it to him.
they would read to him, and they would read Eov. And I wrote a whole Dvar Torah once about this. They read Eov, Divrei Hayamim, and Ezra. Those 3 books. And then Zechariah ben Kvutul Omer. Zechariah ben Kvutul, it's the only time he's mentioned in the entire Mishnah. The Pamim Harbe, many times, Hayiti Korei Lefana B'Sefer Daniel. Many times I read to the. Now he wasn't obviously, apparently he wasn't really a Talmudic scholar. He was the reader. He was the officially assigned reader. Pamim Harbe, many times I read for the Kohen Gadol Daniel. Why? Because they didn't know Hebrew. They only knew Aramaic. It's a lament. It's a terrible thing. So it's just whatever. I just find that so crazy. So Daniel, so this is in Aramaic. So Daniel, it says here, Daniel Kad Yadati Rishim Kad. This is when the king wrote a decree, and this is the idea of going to the line. This actually, as you see here, right here, I think it's here. Or maybe it's before, the verse before, whatever. Okay, I don't want to look for it now. Zimnin tlata biyoma, right? 3 times a day. Zimnin tlata biyoma hu barecha berchayu umatzli. Matzli is the Aramaic word for
davening.
Umoda kadam aloha. And he would, it says, right, he would face Jerusalem. So this is the source, right? It says here, how do they translate? I think how they translate in English, right? Patkin le be'ilte neged Yerushalayim. He opened up an opening. They translate windows.
A window.
Facing Jerusalem. Uzimnan tlatan. 3 times he prayed. So this is the source, as far as I know, the earliest source. This is the source where Jews prayed 3 times a day. I'm not saying necessarily a halachic source per se, but it's recording that the Neil prayed 3 times a day. Okay, Marty, I kept you waiting a long time. Yeah.
No, you were talking about a translation from naked, and I just thought that a good word would be to balance, balance, balance when naked.
I'm sorry, and I have noise in the background. Said something
no,
about connected. You're
a
asking,
good word for naked,
right?
good translation is to balance, as in checks and balances.
Balancing.
Balance. Balance.
Wow.
What's the translation you're saying of neged?
Balance. BALANCE.
That's what I thought you said. Balance. Yeah, I thought you said connected balance. I'm not quite sure I see that. But okay. As we like connected, balancing. I don't know. I have to think about that. Right? Yeah, that's what I thought you, but I don't exactly see that. But all right.
I see correspond.
Oh, correspond is a good word. Yeah, corresponds to. Right. It's I don't know how they. Right. So aids are connected. Right. So, but by the way, I think I mentioned in the past. Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. So I always like to quote in the opening work in the first page of the Nishmat Avraham. I don't know if people know what Nishmat Avraham. Nishmat Avraham is written by Dr. Abraham. I hope he's still alive. I don't know. He's one of the, like Avram Steinberg, he's one of the world's experts on medical ethics, Jewish medical ethics. And he wrote a 6-volume work called Nishmat Avraham. They've translated some of it into English. The style that he chose to write this book, which is an interesting style, it's written like a Mishnah Berurah, like a Shulchan Aruch. He has on the top of the page the Shulchan Aruch, but it's a tenth of the Shulchan Aruch. In other words, whatever parts of the Shulchan Aruch relate to something medical. So he actually quotes like Rav Yosef Karetz on the top of the page, and he has letters, and then he writes commentary, and it's all the ideas of medicine. It's very good. Obviously, all the modern medical book was written, I don't know, 20 years ago. Benny Gesundheit gave it to me as a gift when he left Toronto, whatever, thanked me for it. So he gave me a gift, so I have it at home. Otherwise, I probably would have never gotten it, the 6 volumes. So I've read parts of it. I haven't read the whole thing. But on page number one, you open it up. So we know how the Ramah begins. The first comment of the Ramah is Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. A Jew should always see God before him. And in many a shul, on top of the Aron Kodesh, it says Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. It's a verse in Tehillim. So he quotes from the Tshuva Me'ahava. Tshuva Me'ahava is Rav Yehoshua or Yehuda. I think Yehuda Fleckless. Yehuda Fleckless was the top student of the Noda Yehuda, who's much more famous, Yechezkel Landau. And the Tshuva Me'ahava succeeded Rabbi Yechezkel Landau, I believe, as chief rabbi in Prague. I believe he succeeded. So we're talking here late 1700s, early 1800s. The Noda Yehuda died in 1793. He quotes from this Tshuva Me'ahava. He wrote a sefer book. I just love the name of the book, Tshuva Me'ahava, Response out of Love. It's such a beautiful name for a responsive book. So he writes, Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. He says, he interprets it lenegdi, opposed. God is a person sees always see God as opposed to him. In other words, as a way to encourage you to do tshuva, when things are going really well for you, you should say, you know what? God is giving me my reward now, so I won't get it in the world to come. So it's actually, this is sort of a depressing thought, but Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. In other words, when you have opposition, you have to work harder. If everything's going well, you don't have to work hard, right? So the idea is that we should see God as opposed to us, and we have to work to get God to be on our side. I just thought that's very whatever you want to make of it. Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. God should be opposed to me always, and therefore, because God is opposed to me, I'm going to work hard to be better to get God to come onto my side. Anyways, whatever it means, neged. But okay, let's get back to the book of Daniel. That was chapter 6. Daniel davens 3 times a day. And the next 5 verses that we say on Tachanun Monday, Thursday come from Tehillim, come from Daniel, and we're going to do it in Daniel. Now, what's the context of this? I told you 9 chapter is in Hebrew, most of the books in Aramaic. So yeah, to understand, this is the middle of the chapter. So we're talking Daryavish ben Achashverosh. Esther, Megillat Esther. Okay, very good, right? So this is one of the few times Achashverosh is mentioned in Tanakh. Obviously, in Megillat Esther, mentioned, I believe, 203 times. But outside of that, he's mentioned in Ezra. And here it was the year 1. We know, according to the rabbis, right? Didn't Esther? I forget now. Who did Daryavish marry? I forget the whole calculation. I'm not holding there by Purim, but Daryavish was the one. Achashverosh had stopped the building of the temple, and Daryavish, Darius, in what they call in English, right? Anyway, so he was the king. Mizera Madai, right? Parasu Madai, right? Hodu, right? Mizer Madai, Asher Mlach HaMalchut Kasdim. Okay, and we're Kasdim, right? The Kasdim place where Avram comes from. Bishnat Achat L'Malko, and it was the first year of his reign. Ani Daniel. So we're talking about the 6th century BC. The temple is destroyed in 586, and it's rebuilt approximately 70 years later. So we're talking sometime, I don't know, 540, whatever BC. It's 517 or something BC. It's towards the end. Daniel Binoti Besfarim. By the way, those who know Daniel Feldman, so his books in Hebrew are called Bina Besfarim. Reb Daniel Feldman, that's what's his Hebrew Besfarim, which he writes in English, Hebrew. Of course, those who know him, he's a tremendous Talmud Chacham. He has a shul in Teaneck, I believe, right? And anyway, so he called this Sfarim Binoti Bisfarim. Obviously, I don't ask him, but he maybe writes it, I'm sure, based on this verse. Fine. So he figured out, Daniel is sitting there, it's this number of years that God had foretold Yirmiyahu that it would be 70 years, that after 70 years, the temple will rebuild. And then Daniel's figuring out, we're pretty much in year 70. Vetna el panai elalim. So I'm going to now turn to God. Levakesh tefillah v'tachnunim. Even the word tachanun appears here. So now that the exile has to come to an end, now I can turn to God in tefillah. And notice tefillah and tachnunin are a little bit different. Like tefillah, tachnunin is the more pouring out, beseeching. Tefillah may include praise, may include a little bit more, but it doesn't have that same harshness or that same beseeching of God. Tefillah v'tachnunim b'tzom, right? Fasting, b'sak v'efer, right? We're crying. We're in the exile. V'palal l'Hashem, and I cried out to God. I prayed to God. V'vadai, admitted my sins. I confessed. Omar ana ha'el hagadol ha'nora. Shemer brit v'chetz. We spoke about this many times. What's missing in this verse?
Kel Hagadol.
No, that's there. Ha'el hagadol is here. Ha'el hagadol v'hanora.
Gibor.
Gibor is missing. Why is Gibor missing? Because the Gemara says he was honest.
Yeah.
I quoted this Gemara many times. I think it's such a powerful Gemara. I don't have it inside. I'll just do it up. So powerful, right? The Gemara says Yirmiyahu also didn't say Gadol. I think it was, he said, I can't say Gibor. I can't say because it's not true. God is not Gibor because the non-Jews are watching on the Temple Mount. Not only the Goyim make fun of us when the Jewish people suffer, even the Jews understand. Where's Aye Gvuroto? That's what Daniel said. Where is God? Sorry, I don't see it. So the Gemara then asks, how could he do that? It's Hela Gadol Gvur Vanara. It's Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu said it. What a chutzpah. He's going to change the words of the Talmud because he doesn't like it. Unbelievable chutzpah. So he says, what can you do? They know God is a God of truth, and he didn't see the Gvura, so he can't say it. So I've said this so many times. I think it's such a powerful piece. A Holocaust survivor who can't daven shouldn't daven, right? We don't mimic words. If you don't believe in what you're saying, don't say it. I mean, Rav Shechter would tell us things like that. I remember him telling us, if you don't believe in the Exodus story, you want to take what the Bible critics, then don't eat matzah on Pesach. I'm not sure I agree with that. By the way, I think I see value for a Jew to eat matzah, even if they don't believe in the story. But okay, leaving that aside. But then Daniel said, no, I don't see Gvura Tov, and God is a God of truth, and I can't say it. It's such a powerful. It reminds me, last week something came up, so I guess what came up. We're talking about women and hakafas and Simchas Torah. That what came up. So I wanted to look up the story. It was Rabbi Riskin, right, in 1972, I think it was, where eight women came knocking on his door on Shmini Atzer at night, that they want to dance with Sefer Torah and Simchas Torah, and if he doesn't allow them, they're going to the conservative shul. And he didn't know what to do. He stayed up all night. There was nobody to consult. He's a young rabbi in Lincoln Square. And then he allowed them, and then he didn't know if he did right, so he went to see the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rav Soloveitchik, to ask them all if what he did was right. And Rav Moshe Feinstein, I think, told him he wouldn't have done it, but once he did it, he shouldn't start. And the Rav told him it was okay to do. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe said it's good to do. Absolutely, you can do it. And then the Lubavitcher Rebbe wrote him a letter, and only in your shul. It's not for everybody in your shul. Anyway, that's not the point. So I picked up his book. I remember he told a story in this book he wrote for his grandchildren. He wrote all these beautiful stories, really inspiring stories, Rabbi Riskin, about his career. So I was just flipping through the book because I had it down, looking some story, look at the next chapter. So I had read it years ago. I thought it was such a powerful story. And I actually agreed. You'll see, I disagree with Rabbi Riskin on this one. But he told the story that when it was first starting, they were still, conservative and Orthodox. It wasn't Orthodox originally. So they were having, I think, two minyanim. So he needed somebody to daven the Elah. So he asked somebody came to shul every day, a survivor, to daven Nila, and he told him, I can't daven Nila. He said, why not? He says, because I eat on Tisha B'Av. So Rabbi said, when do you eat on Tisha B'Av? So his guy said, listen, I lost my whole family in the Holocaust. I was mad at God, and I decided I'm rejecting Judaism. I don't want anything to do with God or religion. And then I realized that's not the way we have to continue the Jewish way. But one day a year, I have to express my anger to God. And the way I express my anger to God is that I eat on Tisha B'Av. So Rabbi Riskin told him something, I don't know, maybe next year, like Rabbi Riskin tried to get him to fast. I don't know, I agree with the guy. I think it's beautiful. I'm sorry, I know what I'm saying sounds a little bit anti-halachic, but I think that's a beautiful way. He's going to express his anger at God. He's going to keep mitzvah and he raise a Jewish family and et cetera. But yeah, I'm not going to fast on Tisha B'Av. Chas v'shalom for me to say that, but I don't know. I maybe you think I'm crazy, but Rabbi Riskin then ends. He says eventually he did fast. Years later it came. Okay, Beseder, whatever it is.
I think the point is that he believed in God. He was angry at him. So
Yeah,
that's
of
already
course.
a stage.
I think there's something to that.
He had a true relationship.
Right. I almost think it's beautiful that he didn't fast on Tisha. Yes, you have to express your anger at God. Somebody went through the Holocaust. Daniel
He didn't forsake him.
It's not like we're so, oh my God, we're like Orthodox. You're not allowed to change anything. And, you're reform if you do that. I don't know. I think there's something beautiful in this story that Daniel didn't say Hakibor. He changed what it said. And the Gemara is appalled by this. How could he do this? How can he do that? And the Gemara says, Ish Emet. It's like I remember I once read a story. I have to find it. It's okay, one more story, and then we'll go back here. But somebody wrote years ago about how his aunt and uncle, who were survivors, were the doctor of Rav Moshe Feinstein. Rav Moshe Feinstein's doctor. And he was in Rabbi Tender, this guy who's now a psychiatrist, I believe, he was living in Washington Heights. It was posted in one of these like big blogs, I forget which one, and the whole story. And maybe in the Sfarim blog, I don't remember when. It's over 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago by now. So he said when he was in Rabbi Tender's shiur, so Rabbi Tender told him that his father-in-law is going to has to go to the doctor. Do you want to, come? I'm gonna like. So he was like, in awe. He can go to his aunt, whatever. He was invited. I don't remember exactly how, but it had to do something with Rabbi Tender and the doctor. Maybe it wasn't his aunt, but it was somebody connected. Anyways, he's in the room. He can greet from Moshe Feinstein, and he's there, and he's all nervous. And Moshe comes in, and he doesn't know what to do. He's all nervous, and oh my God, the Gadol Hador, and he's like a 20-year-old kid, and then the doctor comes out, the woman doctor. Hi, Rabbi Feinstein, and the woman walks over and gives Rabbi Feinstein a kiss. And this kid said he was beside himself. He was going to die. The woman comes over and he looked at Ramosha, and Ramosha went like this, said, she has a number. And that was the story he told. And then, of course, somebody wrote in comments, no, you're making up this story. That cannot be. It's impossible. No, it can be. Can be. If you know what, get the Olim for a reason. They know when you can go. It's not even against. We know, not their Achiva, whatever Ramosha said. She has a number. It's okay. It's okay. So I think, anyways, okay, back to Tachanun. Boy, oh boy. Okay, if you disagree, I'm curious to hear why, what other, I'm sure many people disagree with this, but that's okay. All right, back here. So Daniel is, and I do have to leave in a couple minutes, but just, no, yeah, okay. But so anyways, that's the background here. So it's the 7 years are over. He's davening, he's praying to God, who's not a Gibor yet, until the Jewish people come back to the land of Israel. And then he says, Shomer HaBrit, God keeps his covenant. It's almost like a challenge to God, like in the context, because it hasn't happened yet. Right? It's the answer here. I'm praying out to God, beautiful. It's going to come. I believe in you, God. I know you'll do it. Like that's really what it Shomer HaBrit has a God who keeps this covenant and his kindness, right? We have that to those who love him and keep him, which implying if we sin, it won't happen. Like Yaakov Avinu, why was he afraid? God promised. So the Talmud, the sages say, Shema Yigrom, God can promise, but if we sin, the deal's off. The covenant is a two-way street. And then he starts saying, yeah, we've sinned. Chatanu, Vabinu, Hershanu, Maradnu, we rebelled. We veered from your mitzvot and from your commandments. V'lo shamanu. We didn't listen to the prophets, right? This is towards the end of the period of prophecy. Prophecy ends with the beginning of with the construction of the second temple. I mean, soon thereafter. L'chashem hatzdaka. And then we start, God, we say this in Slichus a lot, right? L'chashem hatzdaka v'lanu boshet apanim. God, you're righteous, and we should be embarrassed, and etc. And then, okay, we're going to do the whole thing, but you get the idea. And then we're going to come to what we say in Tachanun, and I'll have to pick up on that next week, I think. But that's okay. Just let me quickly review and then take a couple of questions and then run to Grandparents' Day. Okay, so what do we say? Vehu Rachum, 13 words. We say it 3 times. The Rokeach says because of Shakri Mincha Mariv, so we say it 3 times. Presumably, he didn't say it at Mariv, so that's why otherwise it'd be 4 times. Just like we say Ashrei twice in Shakri, but not 3 times because we're going to say it once in Mincha. We don't say it Mariv. Okay, so that's he said. Vehu Rachum. The essence of prayer is asking God for mercy. It's got 13 words, the 13 attributes of mercy. And we discussed that's really what prayer is. And then we discussed the number 13. There are 13 attributes of God, and therefore the Rambam, not coincidentally, makes 13 principles of faith. There are 13 ways to interpret Torah. The number served as the anchor, and then we worked around the number, just like the 613 mitzvot. We spoke about the change in Avinu Malkeinu. Do we ask God to save us for our sake, which we do in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, or for God's sake? That when the Jewish people suffer, it looks bad for God. It's Chilul Hashem. So we have to do that. Okay, and then we went through Daniel. Daniel's the first one to pray 3 times a day. The concept of 3 times. The Avot really prayed each one once, whatever that means. Shachar, Mincha, Maariv represents their identities, and then but Daniel prays 3 times a day, and then we saw this prayer really that we'll pick up next week. Well, comes the biggest chunk of verses in Tachanun comes from it's the year 70, and it's time to rebuild the temple and to bring forth on Yirmiyahu's promise. Okay, I got to run, but thank you, Rab, for your optimism. Yeah, they're awful of doom and gloom in New York City. Yes, I listen. I don't live in New York, and obviously it's not good that he got elected. But you know what? You got to work with him. He's not the first anti-Israel person who's been elected somewhere. And what can you do? Like and that's the fear of being so against. It pushes people. What can I say? I don't know. I'm not a politician, thank God, and whatever. But let's hope. He's condemned anti-Semitism already, so let's hope he means it, and let's work with him. And what can I tell you? Kodo Dito Fake, thank you. We learned to daven 3 times from Daniel. Why don't we learn how to daven from him? Okay, we can discuss that next week. Okay, I got to run. Sorry, and Shabbat Shalom. Rabbi Leaptag at 11:15.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat
Everybody
Shalom.
be well.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Have a good Shabbos. Be well.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Thank